Welcome, everybody. We've got a really exciting show. We've got Alistair Cross here who's going to talk to us about PicUp, which is a project for litter picking, and Jeff Kirschner from Litterati, which is an app which is about tracking and logging litter that we pick up. And yeah, we had a couple quick questions from the audience, just to kind of little housekeeping things first. Yeah, the audience will be muted, and we won't be seeing and hearing the audience, but you guys are encouraged to communicate by asking questions in the question and answer box. And very soon we'll be bringing Jeff Kirschner on, but first I'm going to hand it over to Alistair Cross to introduce what he's been up to and tell a little bit about the project. Go ahead, Alistair.
Cool. So yes, thank you guys. Thank you for joining our first of hopefully many webinars that will run as PicUp. So you might be joining as somebody who knows about what we're doing, or somebody who's involved in sustainability and environmental work already, or you might have no idea why you're here, and that's what we're going to find out today. So I'm joined by Andrew, who's also a colleague of mine and part of the PicUp. I have Jeff, who's just joined as well. Hey, Jeff.
Alistair, Andrew.
So just to, yeah, as Andrew mentioned, the way this is going to work is I'm just going to give you a little bit of background as to who I am, what we're doing, how that ties in with who Jeff is and what Jeff is doing. As you can see, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please ask questions throughout. I'm just going to be fielding those, and it's going to be very kind of loose and easy. We'll just roll with it. If we have some questions anyway, and if you have questions for us throughout, just ask away. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to who I am and who we are as PicUp. I'm going to do that by sharing a few slides because we all have visuals. So I'm going to share my screen. So, right. So PicUp can you guys see that? Great.
Yep, we can see it. Yep, it's on our screen. Cool.
So I started this project about a year and a half ago, and it came from every morning I'm woken up by the sound of street machines out the window, and every morning I leave my house, or at least I used to, and I still see that despite their great work, our streets are still choked with litter. And I thought there must be a way to tackle this in a fun and creative manner that, you know, also presents people with an opening for action and a way to feel like their efforts made a difference, rather than something that just seems insurmountable and not really possible to make an impact with. So we're a London-based community project, and we're committed to culture where people take responsibility, and through encouraging people to take small actions, our vision really is a world where it's as rare to find a piece of litter on the ground as it is to find, say, a £50 note. And so we're doing this by encouraging people to take note of litter in their environment. And the original project was to take a picture of it with their phone. Everybody has a recording. Submit it to our Litterati, we'll get a bit later, Jeff. And we're going to create each photo comprised of an image. I have an example of what we created last year. So this is an image of almost 2,000 photos, all submitted by Londoners over a period of about 7 or 8 months, submitted through Radio and through our social media channels. So hopefully that's 1,969 fewer pieces of litter on the ground. And I suppose there's 2 points we were trying to make with this. One is that it's an example that from a distance, no matter how lovely our environment, when you look closer, it's still tainted with our waste. But also on a more positive note, just an example how each small action literally contributes to the bigger picture. We want to deal with this new and unusual form of litter with an added bonus. We're creating a new challenge where we want to raise £1 for every photo submitted of personal protective equipment. £1, and we're donating that to the NHS. So there are more, but I'm stop the share because it's people issues, and we'll here.
All right. Yeah, not sure what happened. I don't know. Were you getting that same issue with the audio, with Alistair's audio, Jeff?
I was, but
Yeah.
a good portion of it came through.
You got the gist of it,
Cool.
I hope. So yeah, maybe we can, what do you think we pass it off to Jeff now and kind of introduce Litterati to everybody? Jeff, can you tell us a little about yourself and about Litterati, how it came about and what you guys been up to?
Sure. And first and foremost, thank you both for inviting me to join your discussion, share a little bit about what we're building, and what you guys have accomplished is truly inspirational. And just seeing that mosaic is such a reminder of not only why we do what we do, but also the power of photographs. Every day it's a good reminder for the whole team of exactly the purpose and the mission. So thank you for having me. Let me try and share my screen for a second, and if we find that the connectivity isn't great, I'll stop. But it'll hopefully give everybody a reasonable picture of exactly who we are and what we do. So Litterati is a global intelligence platform based on litter and really the identification of waste. And it's powered by people. There are people all over the planet who are starved for a solution to fixing this problem, as Alistair had discussed. And so that's what we are on the path to doing, is providing a very simple yet sophisticated tool in the form of an iOS app and an Android app that anybody can use to be part of the solution. The way it works is really straightforward. You snap a photograph, and that photo holds a ton of data. We're able to understand who picked up what, where, and when. And what we do is we use machine learning models to identify every object, material, and brand. And that data really provides the root of the problem. Because once you understand what is lying all over our streets and our playgrounds and our beaches and in the ocean, then you can actually start to pave a path towards the solution, right? We're no longer just either guessing, nor are we no longer just picking things up and hoping that that will fix the problem, right? It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We've been doing coastal cleanups and neighborhood litter walks for decades, and yet the problem's not changing. And so at Litterati, our belief is that you really need two key ingredients to solving the problem. One is people. You need to empower people. And two, you need data. And you need forensic style, granular level data to really understand the problem. When we talk about sophisticated, we like to take the simple photograph and then extract all that data and put it into sophisticated analytics, predictive intelligence, and populated dashboard that everybody in our community has access to. We work with quite a few NGOs, cities, schools, and corporates, and they enable their communities to become engaged and collect quite a bit of data as well. But the key for it, and really what drives change, is what we call stories of impact. And we believe that in order to eradicate litter, you really need three things. One, you need policy change. We call them the 3 Ps. You need policy, packaging, and personal responsibility. And I want to show you a couple of examples really fast of how the Litterati community around the world has done just that. So the first was a group of 5th graders. Little town called Modesto, California. They picked up 1,247 pieces of litter just on their schoolyard. Then they looked at the data. And the data showed them that the number one type of litter were the plastic straw wrappers from their own cafeteria. So the kids went to their principal and said, why are we even buying straws? And they stopped. Just recently in Holland, the Dutch Litterati community started picking up what are called anti-flu plastic wrappers. They picked up tens of thousands, took the data to the company, presented it to the CEO, who then committed to changing the supply chain from plastic to paper within a year. That was about 10 months ago. 3 weeks ago, he made good on that promise.
Wow.
A couple of years back in San Francisco, the city wanted to understand what the percentage of cigarette litter was. And so our data and our platform was used to provide verified, because everything is photographed, verified data which now generates about $4 million a year in annual recurring revenue for the city of San Francisco to clean itself up. That data comes through a sales tax. So every time a pack of cigarettes is sold, a percentage of that purchase price goes into this fund. And that was because we were able to provide the city with that specific data around what was the percentage of cigarette litter. And so that's us in a nutshell. We've got this whole planet's clean, and we invite everyone to join us.
Amazing.
Wow, that's, yeah. Just seeing those stories of impact again just reminded me of, I suppose, yeah, the power of individual action. And really, it's not one person going around picking up all those sweet wrappers or all those cigarette butts. One question that comes up for me in listening to you, Jeff, but also in trying this on myself and creating a challenge to enroll people in participating in, is how do you encourage people? Like, what do you think are the ingredients to have people actually get out there and start doing this?
You know, this is going to sound like a cliche, but I think you got to care. So, and that, if we back up for a second and think about this, like from a holistic, almost psychological or sociological perspective, this is such a massive issue, right? Litter impacts the economy. It degrades environments. It kills community pride. It is killing wildlife. And now with the plastic pollution in the ocean problem, it's literally poisoning the food system, right? So big, massive problem. There's plenty of reason to care. But in some ways, the problem is so big that we just don't even see it, right? How many bottle caps, cigarette butts, potato chip wrappers, candy wrappers do we all walk over every single day? Litter is so pervasive that it blends into the background of our lives. So as a result, we become desensitized. And that leads to a feeling of, what difference is it going to make if I pick up a bottle cap? Yeah. So there's this feeling of overwhelm, apathy, hopelessness. Where I think we need to start, to answer your question, is changing that. So how do you use community, connectedness, and data to actually turn a feeling of overwhelm and hopelessness into one of empowerment and inspiration? Those three stories of impact that I just shared articulate how that can actually work, right? And it can start on a small scale, a schoolyard, one city, right? And so I think that's the key, is how do you actually give people a reason to care, and then after that, provide the tool that empowers them to actually make a difference.
We had actually, just before the whole crisis, our little group at Framestore, led by Alistair, was trying to take this to schools, because we were saying, if kids learn from an early age the importance of picking up their litter, not throwing it on the ground in the first place, and all that kind of stuff, then they might even influence their parents, or at least they'll grow up to be people who don't litter more. And so the same photomosaic project, our plan was to bring it to schools, but then the whole lockdown happened, and people got very worried about picking up rubbish and the safety of it, and am I going to catch the disease by picking up rubbish? So all that came to a screeching halt, besides all the schools closing as well. So we had a plan to kind of do what you're talking about, and then we came to a halt. And I guess I thought it'd be, I'm sure this is on a lot of people's minds, which is what about the safety of picking up rubbish? Like, what are your thoughts on that? How do we do it safely? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it starts with common sense, right? So what we say to our community. So let me talk about beyond COVID and then COVID. So what our sort of policy, if you will, has always been is you have to use common sense, right? So if there's something that doesn't feel right to you, or you're nervous about for whatever reason, just don't touch it. Full stop. When COVID began, I sent a note to the entire community. And the subject line of the email said, "Protecting the planet can wait, protecting your health cannot." And you can only imagine, like, from our perspective, to send a note to people in 165 countries, basically telling them to stop doing everything we've told them to do for the last couple of years, is a really bizarre thing to do, but it was the right thing in our opinion. It was the right thing to do. And interestingly, two things have occurred in the last couple of months. One, and Stephanie, I saw your comment about talking to what we teach our children and kids, and you're absolutely right. What has happened is a lot of school children and teachers have approached us and said, Litterati provides a way for us to stay connected while disconnected. So I'll give you an example of something that's happening right now with school kids. There's a youth group called the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp. And we're a founding member of the Ocean Heroes Boot Camp, along with groups like Lonely Whale Foundation, Captain Planet, the United Nations, and it happens once a year. This year, there's 425 kids, and we put together a Litterati challenge. So every other year, we've all come together in person. This year, it's all virtual. We set a goal, a Litterati challenge goal for the youth, who are between 6 and 12, to pick up 5,000 pieces in a week. 5,000 pieces in a month. Pardon me. That was the goal. 5,000 pieces in a month. They picked up 10,000 in 2 days, and they're still rocking. So their reason was, look, we can still work together. We can be connected even though we're disconnected. So that's the first thing that we've seen. The second thing we've seen is that just this past month, so we do monthly reporting of all the impact, we had like our second highest month ever. So the numbers came in yesterday, and it's actually in the app. It's one of the things we feature. So it was, I'll show it to you really quick. On the app, yesterday, the overall pickup for June was 256,000 pieces, which is, as you can see, an increase from May, which was 233,000. Now, that could be because many more people have joined the community. It could be because of programs like the Ocean Heroes. But the point is, people are still out there actively working together. And that's what we're doing.
I think it's a real, it's what I think what's beautiful about it is that you're connected with people, but it's something you can do on your own if you want to, or you can do it with other people, and there's just a million ways to participate.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, Alistair. Sorry, go ahead.
No, carry on, please.
I'll be honest with you. Like, we can do such a better job in connecting people. For Litterati, one of the many things that keeps me up at night is, how do we foster community? How do we keep people connected? So does that mean that I am going to be more inspired by connecting with people who live near where I do, because we share a community, so we want to share in cleaning that community? Does it mean that I'm better off connected to friends and family because there's already that level of relationship, right? So if you think about, we have Litterati challenges. Am I more apt to challenge somebody I don't know but who lives nearby than I am to my brother or my sister or my coworkers? And these are the kinds of things that we are testing, because at the end of the day, back to the two key ingredients, community and data, we believe that this is a key factor in solving this problem. And we can do a much better job than we do.
But just to kind of finalize the point about the safety thing, yeah, I mean, obviously use common sense. You don't feel safe, don't pick it up. But have you looked into any of the science around, let's say, the risks of picking up a crisp bag? Is it more just people's fear? Do you think there are any genuine risks? What do you think about the importance of things like gloves or using one of those trash pickers? Just to kind of, because I think that I know that a lot of people who would like to do it are worried, and so I'm just wondering, what can we say that what does the science say about safety of picking up litter?
Yeah, it's a fair question, Andrew. So let's talk about the science of a potato chip or a crisp bag. I think it probably depends. So is that bag just lying in a grass field? That's very different than if it's been sitting outside of a storm drain for the last 3 months, right? So there's a lot of contributing factors that may determine whether something is clean or, the level of sanitation or safety. Certainly picking up something like, a needle is not something you want to do. Broken glass, depending on it, probably not something what you want to do. I can't speak to the germs on a particular item. That's not something I know enough about. When it comes to gloves and trash pickers, so let me talk about gloves for a second. By all means, if that's what makes you feel comfortable, that's what you should do. I never do. One, because I never have them with me, but more importantly, I don't want that to be a blocker. I don't want, right at our core, what we're all talking about is behavior change. That's the key that we're all trying to achieve. Like, how do we change people's behavior? And so if the requirement is to always have a pair of gloves, it's going to be pretty tough, in my opinion. Not that some people shouldn't do that because that's what makes them feel comfortable. They absolutely should. But the majority of our community does not do that. Then there's trash pickers. So what's happened has blown my mind. People have taken them and made them smart. What they're doing is they are literally, and I'll be happy to share this and you can share with your community. They are outfitting them with like a holster and a phone. So I'll do it on my arm. So let's say this is the trash picker, right? And up here you squeeze and down here is the claw. Okay. It's kind of weird to do on Zoom, but whatever. So they're doing it like this. They're putting the phone up here in a holster, like a selfie stick. The camera is focused right at the ground. When they squeeze, they Bluetooth, there's a little Bluetooth trigger, it fires a photograph and they're collecting that data. So, you know, people are coming up with these really creative workarounds that are allowing them to pick up. If you look at our community today, people are picking up 1,000 pieces a day. It's really remarkable.
And just
so hopefully that answered your question about safety.
Yeah, it was helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe just a question / point about the safety thing. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say, of all the photos I've taken, I haven't picked up everything that's in those pictures. And sometimes it's just because it's not been possible. It's like way on the other side of a fence and I've had to sort of zoom in, or like you said, Jeff, it's something that I just wouldn't feel comfortable picking up. But would you say that it's still valuable to collect the data, even if you're not actually picking up the litter?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, the data is what's going to lead to the change. And the school kids were a great example of that. Patrick, I see your question. The answer is yes. So and it's all different, right? So some school, when you work with younger students who don't have their own phones, oftentimes a teacher there might be iPads or Android devices, tablets that the school will use, or they will share. As you get older, at this point, most, or many, I should say, middle school and high school kids do have phones. But Alistair, yeah, I mean, the data is critical. We've communicated since day one that, you know, this is a group of people that are cleaning up. So what's so inspiring about the Litterati community is nobody's asking for permission. No one's waiting to for somebody else to take control of this problem. They are out there doing this, as you know, themselves, right? And that for us is what drives us. And we need to keep providing a tool that's super simple and really sophisticated.
Actually, a question just came in, and I think I just maybe clarify a little bit about the app works. The question is, where do we send these photos? And maybe you can just talk a little bit about how the app works so they understand.
Sure. So Stephanie, it's a good question. So it's very simple. You take a photo and then you upload the photos. You're done.
But so, you're taking it with the app rather than with your built-in photo.
So the app is just a camera. It's just a photo application.
Yeah.
And so let's say you pick up you snap a photo of a Coke can. Again, back to that photograph. Who, what, where, and when. So the who, me, the where I'm located, the when, the time that I picked it up is all automated, right? That is immediately affixed to that photograph or the 100 photographs. The what, object, material, brand, you can manually input plastic, Coke, cup, but we also use AI, what I referred to earlier as machine learning models. It's just a fancy phrase for computer vision. So we look at the photograph and we take out what are the objects, materials, and brands. We place predictions on what we think they are based on the 6 million photographs that we have already in the data set. So you snap a photo, snap a photo, snap a photo, and you'll see a little blue arrow that points up and you click it and that sends everything to the cloud and everything is handled that way.
Yeah. So just to be clear, you have to have the app installed first, and you have to open the app and use that to take the photos rather than using your photo app.
So actually, you don't have to. I think the preferred way is to do that, but the same way that you can import photographs from your native camera gallery as well, the same way you would for Facebook or Instagram or any other well-known application. We just did that because our community asked for it, but it's easier if you take it in the application, which is simply a photo app. We do not require data at the point the photograph is taken. So the data all happens without a connection. So if you're out in the middle of the woods and you don't have a Wi-Fi connection or you don't have cellular, we will still use satellite to capture location. So as you have to be logged in, obviously, the same way you would for any app. But no, the moment you snap the photo, that's when the data is captured. So you could capture it, in the middle of the beach, and when you get home, you could upload everything, and all the data is from the point of capture.
And also, just to add, like if you do use just your native phone application, most of the time when you take a picture, you get that geo data baked into the picture anyway. So when you go home and you get Wi-Fi signal and you upload to the Litterati app, it's all there.
That's right. Provided you allow location services the same way you would for any application, yes, all of that geodata is instantly captured.
One thing we end up in some of the meetings we've had at work and with this group, we end up talking a lot is, I willing to hazard a guess that obviously everybody, all of us panelists, and probably every single person who's tuned to this webinar is not one of the people who throws litter on the ground. Like to me, I can't do it. I would never do it. Since I was a child, it's been unacceptable behavior. But there are loads of people who do throw litter on the ground all the time, throwing it out their car windows. And one thing I think I'd be interested in your insights on this, and if any of the data or your experience help this, is like, what do you imagine is the psychology of the people who are generating a lot of this litter and not disposing of it properly? And how do we reach them? Because a lot of the stuff we do is preaching to the converted. All of us probably in this group are very much committed to not littering ourselves and even picking up more. But how do you reach the people who are generating the litter, and what do you think psychologically or mentally is causing them to do this?
So I actually don't think that many people litter. And I would hazard a guess that the majority of stuff that you see on the ground did not end up on the ground because somebody threw it there, which makes this problem that much more complex. So what I mean by that is, really, other than a cigarette butt, when was the last time you saw somebody throw something down? I spent a lot of time in London. London is, as much as I love the city, it is as filthy as San Francisco, as Manhattan, Manila, and obviously different places in the world have different scales to this issue. But realistically, you just don't see people throw things on the ground that often. So what I mean by the complexity of this problem is you're talking about infrastructure, trash cans overflowing, waste trucks and recycling bins. They're just not designed appropriately. So that begs the question, how do we get better policy, packaging, things like that into place? But yes, some people do throw things on the ground. So Andrew, to your question, around the psychology of how do you get to them, there are some that you just won't get to, right? And for us as an early stage company, we have to focus today on the people that share in the philosophical mindset that we do, like we all do. Right? And if we can demonstrate through our actions that actually there's a better way, over time, somebody else comes over. There will be people we will never reach. And so I wouldn't waste our time trying to reach them. Maybe through their children, that'll be a way that the light bulb goes off, because it does for so many of us. But I think you demonstrate that people can create change through their actions, and all of a sudden that becomes a pretty magnetic tool.
I think just to add to that, Jeff, it comes back a little bit to education, and it seems like an obvious answer, but I know from a friend of mine who's Japanese that when growing up in Japan, it's part of your school routine to clean the school. So from a young age, you're instilled with this mindset that we clean our environment. And there's definitely other countries, I think maybe Stephanie will be able to back me up on this. In New Zealand, you would challenge someone that you saw dropping litter or leaving something behind after a picnic or something, where that's not really our culture here. And it's about making that change and transforming how people relate to it and how they, if they're willing to put themselves in line for what ultimately is a bigger cause.
Yeah, and Stephanie, sorry, go ahead. Oh, that was my feedback. My bad. So Stephanie, I've been very lucky to spend some time in New Zealand, and there is a totally different culture there, which I've seen, and I think it's a balancing act, right? Like, how do you confront somebody? Do you confront somebody? And does it matter if it's in your backyard or if you're a tourist? Like, that's a really tricky situation. I'll tell you a quick funny story. So I spent 30 years living in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and I was walking down the street, and a gentleman threw a bottle cap, like pretty much at my feet. You know, he was just mindlessly doing it. Andrew, to your point about people just kind of doing it. And I never say anything. I just, that's just not me. But on this particular case, I said, "Excuse me, sir, just so you know, there's a trash can right there." And he looked at me and he was rather irate. And he said, "That ain't none of your damn business." I was like, "Actually, it's my whole," forget it. I just kept like, there's just a point where you're not going to get through. And I think you have to weigh the pros and cons of every one of those scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone was bringing up, and something, we've been talking a lot about here is, as the bars and the pubs and the restaurants have been closed, and so people's social outlet has been going to the parks. And I go through the run in our local park every day, and seeing a lot of people gathering, and which I think is lovely, and by all means go and drink and get high in the park. Great. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. But then, there's the circle of people, and then what's behind is just this circle of just trash, just rubbish, like bottles and crisp bags, and and it's just like they just, whatever was there, they just got up and moved away. And so we've been seeing quite a lot of that, and it's been really taxing on the the people who do clean up the parks. And then they're talking about the beaches, the tonnage of stuff. So it's interesting how it feels like, and that's part of this whole PPE thing that Alistair is spearheading, was this: we're seeing actually more rubbish on the street, more litter during the crisis for a number of different reasons than before. And I'm, just wondering if you had any thoughts or insight on that.
We're seeing the same here in the States. There are several reports that waste has increased by sixfold as a result of COVID. Now, some of that is PPE, wipes, masks, gloves, but I think a bigger percentage of that comes from all the single-use plastics, because now everything, all the carry out food, and it is a massive problem. A lot of recycling centers have shut down, right? This is a really big, tough problem. And I think for most people, it's out of sight, right? They take something, they consume it, they throw it away or put it in a recycling bin. From that point on, it is out of their sight. They trust that it goes somewhere, that somebody else takes care of it. Like, they just don't know, and they just don't see. In many ways, and I do this full time, like, I don't know and I don't see. And this is going to take a long time to solve. And so when we think about, like, how do we create a community that's engaged, incentive becomes a big topic. Today, our community is purely intrinsically rewarded, but we have spent a lot of time thinking about what are other engagement tactics around gamification, points, actual compensation, because at the end of the day, to unlock a mass market, you're going to require some level of incentive and reward and recognition.
So just to kind of off the back of that, I wanted to ask you about something which might tie into this. From what I've seen of the stats around the uptake on Litterati, there seems to be, it's quite popular in the US, and it's massive in the Netherlands. And there's sort of various hotspots around the world which have really adopted it. Not so much here, sadly. I'm just curious to whether you have any insight into maybe what drives certain countries or certain cultures to adopt that over others.
I think we're still relatively small, right? I think the perception of Litterati might be fairly well known, but like the reality, and this is just me being honest, like, it's still a relatively small community. So it comes down to are there influential, I don't mean celebrities, but like a couple of people in these different communities, could be 5, it could be 500, who are driving this change in behavior, who are saying, look, I'm doing this, or I got a whole school on board, or I've got 10 people in an environmental club on board, or several people from my work environment. And those are the people that are pushing this today. We've been lucky. We've had quite a bit of press. But at the end of the day, nothing drives adoption like organic, positive word of mouth. And so when you ask, like, are there any insights? To me, it's still that. It's still, have we delighted somebody in a particular community? And when they're delighted, they become an ambassador for the larger movement.
Right. Okay. So with that in the background, then what is, you mentioned earlier, you were going to talk about COVID and then post-COVID. So what do you see as next on your agenda as a company post-COVID and also beyond that?
So for us, when we think about the long-term sustainability of Litterati, it comes back to where we've always been: empowering people to collect data. So right now, there are quite a few organizations around the world who are trying to battle this problem. And everybody's after like a different set of data. Like, there's such a lack of interoperability, consistency, clarity. Everybody's like, it feels like things are very siloed. So what we've just recently built, because everything is generated by a simple photograph, is the ability to extract data and then push it out to the major scientific standards based on their guiding principles. Because we can look at a photograph and maybe one scientific standard says that's a plastic straw, but a second standard says that's a 6-inch piece of plastic, because they're curious in like size. We're able to push that out and export the data based on what all these scientific standards are. So for us, in the next 12 to 18 months, it's really focusing on becoming the default science platform that can still be used by anybody in the world, but provides that real level of granular, evidence-based, consistent data. Then as we move forward, it's really about how do we continue to incentivize and recognize and reward people, because that I believe is what will convert the masses. It is what will bring more people into this community. But we got to get the data part like nailed. It should be magical. That's how it should feel. We like to call it one click and you're done. We're not there yet, but we're getting close.
Wow, nice. I think that actually, I see a couple of questions here. Yeah, what positive feedback do users get after they've been involved in the challenge? And I suppose there's many answers to that. It could just be that sense of fulfillment, and I think this is what we're trying to plug into a little bit, is to see a visible result for everything you've done, whether it's 10 of you or 1,000. In our case, it was create a cool picture, and you could do anything with those photos. It doesn't have to be print them on paper. You could project them on building. Us who work on PicUp, we're all working in the film industry, most of us anyway, and so we've been playing around with ideas of what you could do that, gives you that real sense of achievement around it. Have you come across any other projects maybe similar to ours or in the same vein where people have done something with the resulting data?
On Litterati specifically, or other applications that have rewarded people for their behavior?
Well, either really.
Yeah, and Peter, it's a really, really smart question. So let me give you an example of where we're headed on the product roadmap. So we've thought long and hard about, okay, well, we're building community. So would you want to connect with somebody? And if so, what would that look like? Or would you want to follow somebody a la Twitter? And if so, what are you following? And where we netted out was, we think that the right way to start this is really light touch. So I don't think I necessarily want to follow or friend, because I don't think Litterati today is set up for that, but I definitely want to say thank you. So every day, if I look on, there's a leaderboard in the Litterati application. If I could just one click say thank you to a particular individual, that's like just enough to start. Because if I'm on the receiving end of that and I receive a thumbs up, a wave, a thank you, some gratitude for the action that I've taken, that feels good. But then, like, where do you go from there? So what if we start to take, so on the product roadmap, we're going to start looking at, we already have started looking at, but we're going to start building in notifications. So how do you get really fun and delightful? For me, it's about surprise and delight. So there's an application, it's a skiing app actually. And what they do is when you've traversed like 10,000 feet of terrain, you get a notification. Congratulations, you've just traversed 10,000 feet. That's kind of cool. We look to the athletic apps, the exercise apps like Fitbit, Strava, Runkeeper, and because we model some of the thoughts on some of the things that they've done. You know, like, hey, you've just picked up your 100th Starbucks cup. Boom. There's something in there that's cool. We haven't launched it yet, but that's what we're working on now. And I think that there's just so much opportunity to make people feel good about this, about what they're doing.
It's like those video game badges where along the main quest you can earn all the different kind of smaller badges, you know, for different achievements, you know.
Absolutely. There's something really like true about, like, from a human nature perspective, about this journey and unlocking the next thing, leveling up, acquiring a point. There's a lot of human truth there. And so but I also think it's a slippery slope, because the minute you are contributing to the greater good because you're earning something, we have to be careful. But that's some of the way we think about it and sort of where our heads are at.
Just had a good question come in, which is what kind of people are in the Litterati team? What are their backgrounds and motivations? And do you do everything in-house?
So this team has come together in the most amazingly bizarre yet so rewarding way. So there's 5 of us full-time, soon to be 6, and then a team of 12 developers. The 12 developers, well, so we're all a team because the 12 developers are part of another firm, but they've been with us for the better part of 2 years. You know, their two co-founders are investors in Litterati, so it's very familial. So 17 people spread throughout Madrid, Spain, Chicago, San Francisco, North Carolina, Doha, Qatar, Karachi, Pakistan, Cambridge, Massachusetts. And one of the things that makes me so proud is that this is a team that just really cares. Like, we get up every day because we're driven by the purpose as much as a paycheck. And, you know, I've built several other startups before, but I've never seen people come together for a greater good like I'm witnessing right now. And what's really reassuring about that is this is hard. Like, it's just really hard. And so when times get tough, which they always do, you know, to be able to lean back on your why, on your purpose, on your North Star is really helpful. So 17 people located all over the world, completely remote. We don't have a main office, never have. And, you know, we're kind of a ragtag bunch of engineers, storytellers, business people, marketers, data scientists. And, you know, there's a collection of people who have been seasoned executives and startup entrepreneurs. Pardon me, we've had our fair share of failure and a little bit of success. And we just kind of feel like we're all in on this little secret that we're continuing to, you know, let other people are finding out about, you know, like you guys. And we just couldn't be more thrilled to keep doing what we're doing.
You mentioned investors. Is there an idea that this will start generating revenue, or is it meant to be more of a nonprofit kind of?
Yeah, so we're structured as a for-profit. We're on the road to becoming a B Corp, which stands for benefit. So we believe, and this was a decision I made a long time ago, that the way to generate long-lasting impact, like to eradicate litter, was through providing a product or service that people wanted. that was really of value. So there were a couple things. One, I didn't want to spend, like personally, I didn't want to spend my life raising dollars all the time. I wanted to build something. And the second thing was that I didn't have any operating experience in the nonprofit world. I sat on the board of directors for a playhouse. So I understood nonprofit world a little bit, but my area of experience was the startup world. And so I figured this is a big problem. Let's just take a big swing at it. And if we fail, we fail, but let's take a shot. Because I believe that if you can generate revenue in a sustainable manner, it allows you to actually create even more impact. And there's plenty of examples like that. And so we spent 2019, in the beginning of 2019, we started to raise capital. In 2018, I ran a Kickstarter campaign. Kickstarter had actually, come on in. Kickstarter had actually approached us. And so we ran a campaign and that was successful. In 2019, we went out to raise a round of seed funding, and we raised $500,000 from accredited angels and received $1 million non-dilutive grant from the National Science Foundation to work on the AI and the machine learning and build this global litter database. And then we spent 2019 doing customer discovery interviews, because the groups that were willing to pay because they wanted what we had were schools, NGOs, corporate, and cities. And what we learned, and there was a common thread. The common thread was, it's back to where I started. How do we engage our own people, our own communities, and how do we collect data? It doesn't matter if it's a 5th grade class or the city of Rome. It's about engaging people, collecting data to inform decisions that lead to change. And when we thought about the long-term horizon of Litterati, the group that makes the most sense for us, and we're seeing this play out now from a business model perspective, are cities. And the reason is simple. They feel the pain the most because they pay for it. Waste budgets are huge. And they're looking to engage their citizens. Not only that, but from our perspective, if you can do it for Rome, you can do it for Raleigh, or you can do it for Manila or Manhattan. It's a repeatable model. We've got a lot to prove, but that's the path that we're on.
Great. That makes sense.
There's a question here from Will, which is quite interesting, especially, what's the latest on open data, and is all of Litterati's litter data available to query?
Such a timely question, Will. We are opening up our data in 2 weeks. So we have been preparing everything for that. And for us, to give you some context, early on, I still do this, but really early on, I used to speak at a bunch of schools, and a lot of teachers would say, hey, how you're protecting all of our data, right? And so we had a policy, which was, you get out what you put in. You obviously always have access to your own data, but should, John Doe be able to see Jane Doe's data? We weren't really sure. And so we always sort of erred on the side of caution and privacy, because that was important to us. But we started talking to the community, and like literally 99% of everybody, I want my data to be contributing to a greater public benefit. And so we said, okay, how are we going to do this? And so we've been working on it for a long time, and we are just about to open it up. In fact, last night I wrote the Medium post that will go out in the next couple of days, it looks like. And it's tricky. Like, our goal is, this is information for the masses. So that's what we're doing. And we need to keep improving the data. And we're excited to see what other people do with it. Like, how are they going to visualize it? What if you extract a data set of all the McDonald's litter, and then you overlay a map of all McDonald's locations? Could that lead to change? Those are the things that we get really stoked about. There's a quote that I heard a long time ago, which was, I think it's a Jeff Bezos quote, but I'm not sure. It's, the smartest people in the world don't work for you. Right? So like, if you just open this up to others, it could lead to real change.
That's really great. I just, since we just have a few minutes left, I just wanted to make sure, Alistair, you had a minute to really maybe just like pitch the project we're doing right now one more time, because it was a little choppy at the beginning and I wanted to make sure. Do you want to do that one more time? Just a real quick, what the project is and how people can join in?
That would be great. And Andrew, if you can share that slide that we looked at earlier. I can maybe just talk over it a bit.
Oh, that's just the quick 4-step one.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jeff, this has been brilliant to really get an insight into how it works under the hood, and maybe just as an example of what we're doing and how people can get involved. Our specific challenge, as I mentioned earlier, we have seen a huge increase in the amount of gloves, masks, wipes, all that stuff in our environment. And really what we're encouraging people to do is download the app. Within the app, you can connect to a challenge. And that's essentially something we've just set up, and we've put a target number in of 2,500, just as something to strive for, just a game to play. With the app, you connect to your challenge. There's a code that you use to connect to that, and that's I don't know if you can see. Oh no, you can't see my mouse because it's not my screen. But you can enter the code for the challenge, PicUp PPE, and every photo you take once you've connected to the challenge contributes to the challenge count. And what we're committing to do, and this is something I wanted to clarify a bit, we've had some questions on it, is we want to hit the target of 2,500. We discovered in our first efforts that around 2,000 photos gave us a reasonably good photo mosaic printed on an A0 piece of paper. So we're going a bit higher, but for every photo that's submitted, we want to also raise £1 per photo for the NHS. I don't know if anybody's been affected by COVID on this call, or the NHS is an incredible system we have in the UK. And the people who work in it, especially during this time, have been just so inspiring that we, like everybody else, we want to give something back. And it seemed appropriate that, PPE being so prevalent in our environment, let's raise some money. We're also looking to reach out to organizations who maybe make masks or PPE if they want to donate something too. We're open to all sorts of involvement, really. But on an individual level, you can download the app, create an account, join our challenge. Every picture you take contributes to the code, or we have a Just Giving page, and we're going to have some links at the end. And we're inviting people to just say anything they feel comfortable donating. We're also looking to approach some larger organizations who might want to put their name behind it, maybe donate a larger amount. We're completely open and speculating and just playing with it.
Can I add something there?
Please.
So what we just built into the application is, for those of you that have not ever downloaded the app and joined the community, the first thing you'll see on the screen is, do you have a code? You can enter the PicUp Global code that Alistair just shared, and you're right into your particular challenge. You don't even have to create an account if you don't want to. You'll be assigned like an anonymous environmental sounding name. Of course, you can claim your profile, but it's a quick way to just get right into the challenge that Alistair and Andrew put together.
Brilliant. I did not know that. That's very useful, because I think people do have an aversion sometimes to registering, create another account for something else.
Yeah,
you're getting emails from and everything. So great, brilliant. Just checking if there's any last questions. I don't think so. Well, look, it's 3 minutes to 6 over here, which is earlier for you, Jeff, I know, but I just want to wrap this up by saying thank you so much for giving an hour of your day to share with us what you're up to, and to inspire us to actually go out there and make a difference. And to everybody who joined, I'm really grateful that you've also taken time out of your days to be curious about what you can do and what's possible in what arguably is quite a daunting task. And if you have any questions at all, you can, I think a lot of you either know me or know a way to get through to me. The PicUp information is on the slide Andrew just showed. We can maybe leave that up at the end, or you can find us online. I'm sure same with Litterati, you can find them online as well if you have any questions.
Any last words you want to leave us with, Jeff?
Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to join you on this call. And I would say this, like, it's really easy to be the skeptic. It's really easy to say, you know what, somebody else's problem, or it's just too daunting, too big. What's difficult is actually taking the action. But what's amazing is that we say this at Litterati all the time, that individually you can make a difference, but together is where we create the impact. And you're seeing it already, right? If 2 people out of the 26 that are participating on this call join, that's going to have an impact. 1, you're crazy. 2, you're a community, right? And so just try picking up 1 piece. You're not going to clean up London tomorrow, but like if 26 people picked up 1 piece a day, the exponential impact that that has over time is really remarkable.
Brilliant. Just to answer that last question, this is being recorded, and we will post it on our accounts and website for anyone who wasn't able to make it or wants to rewatch it.
Or share it.
Or share it. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, I think unless there's anything else, thank you all so much for joining. And again, thank you, Jeff, for your time and for all the information. We can do this again sometime. It's been great.
That would be great. And I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Really, really enjoyed this. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.